Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth, Village Farms Traders and Investors. It's Rod with POW Group, your home for MJ stocks, crypto assets, news and interviews. Today is Tuesday, September 2nd. Hope you had a great long weekend. And in this video, we're going to take a look at VFF. There was a drop of nearly 30% after hours and finally starting weekly consolidation after 10 weeks in a row. So we knew to be expecting a sizable pullback, and that was the clue once we started weekly consolidation, meaning once we lost the low of last week. We'll take a look at all of that and more though. There is a bullish continuation pattern that's forming. I'll talk about key support and resistances, and I'll give my thoughts and opinions on the technicals and the price action, what to expect there in the days, weeks, months ahead. But before we do, make sure to smash the like. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, you'll be notified on any future videos or when I go live. And as always, this is not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. And full disclosure, I do own VFF. It's a small position, but I've been slowly accumulating ever since they divested their veggie business to Vanguard Food. I was very bullish on them, and I've been adding consistently. And you can also follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. The handle for that is @GroupPOW. And you can see here the video for POW algo alerts. We actually have Village Farms in our alerting system, and there was multiple sell alerts that went off on VFF showing that it was heavily overbought. So essentially what it does is it factors in multiple different time frames, not just one overbought indicator, but multiple different time frames. And whenever those higher level time frames, when all three of them are overbought simultaneously, that's when we get these alerts. And there's the same ones for oversold, and overbought can be a great signal on when to potentially take profit or look to reload cheaper or expect downside. And then the oversold ones can be great buying opportunities, or like I said, just a clue to expect a pretty big bounce at some point soon, right? But as of right now, this is to be expected. There's no major red flags whatsoever. We just started weekly consolidation, and the S&P 500 was the same thing. So if we bring up SPY, we lost the low of last week on SPY here this week. So that basically brought weekly consolidation to most sectors. And if we bring up VFF again here, like I said, the last time we consolidated on the weekly time frame was way back in toward the end of June. So this was the 10th week in a row where we had a higher low every single candle, meaning each candle's low was higher than the previous one. And you can see once that pattern broke, we knew to be expecting a pretty sizable correction. And just from when weekly consolidation started, which was the low of last week at 286, we're now down 15%. So that was a huge red flag. But from the top here of the move at 339, this all coming off of 45 cents, mind you, in just a matter of, how many weeks was that? That was 20 weeks. That's how quickly things can change. In 20 weeks, this thing ran over 650%. So we'll say about 650%. And I said in the last video that we had multiple bull flags on the weekly that confirmed. We had one here, higher low, weekly bull flag, a second one here, second weekly bull flag. The S&P 500 was a weekly bull flag as well, so that gave more confidence and tailwinds. And then this is actually another weekly bull flag forming here as well. So again, this was a huge red flag, and I said, when we top out, we're easily going to pull back 20-30%. We're sitting at 243 here after hours, down almost 11%. I didn't see any news, nothing really in the sector. Like Tilray's still hovering around where it closed, down a penny. MSOS down a nominal amount, so not much, not even a percent. So it doesn't seem to be sector related. We were looking at the Oval Office today. There was an announcement from the president, and it ended up being a nothing burger in terms of MJ. It was a space Rocket City, Alabama, Huntsville. So had nothing to do with MJ at all. And I mentioned that this would more than likely be the case. It'll probably come out when we least expect it. But it ended up being a nothing burger in terms of MJ news. But we could see an announcement at some point with regards to rescheduling any week now. So we just have to be patient. But in my opinion, I think it's a good thing that we're getting weekly consolidation out of the way now. And like I said in the last video, don't be surprised that when we top out, after such a big move, we need to expect at least a 20-30% pullback, and it would still be considered healthy. So if we look at the high of last week to the low of after hours here, we're down about 28, little over 28%. So we're almost down that 30%, and it could continue. We do have EMA 12 here at 208. And if we bring up the fib tool here and we go from our swing low to swing high, we know that's our low because that's when we were consolidating, pulling back, losing the low of the previous weekly candle. So that's your low. And then we know that this is our high because that's where we topped out on this bounce, because all of those candles had a higher low. So once we started weekly consolidation, that's our swing low to swing high. Then we start weekly consolidation. Anything over the 0.32 fib, which is just 38% correction of this move, that's considered healthy, right? You're not going to go in a straight line forever. You're not going to go in a straight line down forever. So in my opinion, this was overdue. This is healthy at the moment. There's no major red flags. As long as we hold 211, we're just fine. So, and that's also lining up perfectly with weekly EMA 12. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see us down around 211. I know everybody's going to be losing their minds if we do, because that would mean, from the high of last week, that would mean we're down almost 40%. But again, if you know charts, if you just been around for a while now, when you have this big of a move from 45 cents to $3.39 and no support on the weekly down to 98 cents, the next nearby support on the price action, you need to expect a 20-30% minimum. And we're already getting that. So if we do pull back to 211, it's the third weekly bull flag in a row. So if we hold 211, we come back up and break resistance there at 339, then we take our measured move and we move it out to our 0.32 fib, and that's your measured move there is 716. Now keep in mind we already confirmed 2 weekly bull flags back to back, so the odds of a third one have diminished significantly. Not to say that it can't happen, just not the most likely scenario. And if we do lose 211, we could easily be back down to that 180, 160 area, which would put us into that golden pocket. And we do have some other support in that region as well. We have the 10-week moving average there at 203. The stochastic cross bearish, so that was a little bit of a heads up and red flag as well. But we're still well above the 10-week, and the MACD is still extremely bullish as well. But in terms of the 200 weekly moving average, we got pretty extended. And what happens is usually when you get above, right, it was all these moving averages were resistance, resistance, resistance. Got below it again, resistance. Now we got above it, we confirm it as support, we go again, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little extended here on the 200 weekly, come back down and back test that. That's around 183. So again, that's only if we're not able to maintain that 211 level. I could easily see us back down around 190, 180. And then on the 50-day moving average, that's at 182. So there's a lot of support in that 180 area. So if we do lose 211, don't be surprised if we do drop probably another 10 or 20% from there. So if we take a look at the monthly time frame as well, something I wanted to highlight here. So we just had the monthly EMA 12 and 26 bull cross. And that's basically, it's already occurred. So it's basically happening as we speak. Last month, we almost had record volume on the NASDAQ here. If we just reset this chart view, this move's all coming off the low as well on the monthly. So from 45 cents to 339 in just half a year. So yeah, that was the low of April. And we are starting, well, this is a brand new monthly candle. So it's a long way before we start monthly consolidation. We would have to, it looks like we are because it's after hours, but this would just amend that candle tomorrow since it's a new monthly candle. And there's 27 days left. Anything's possible. But in order to start monthly consolidation, we would have to lose the low of last month, the low of August, which is at 138. I don't see that as the most likely scenario. I see the most likely scenario is just this inside bar that I mentioned before, I think in the Power Group private community, based on the size of this candle from August. The most likely scenario is we just see an inside bar and we tighten up within last month's range, and then more than likely get a break over the next month or two, sometime into the fall. So we will expect, like I said, a little bit more downside. Not seeing any news specific to VFF. If anybody does come across any news, please let me know, but I didn't see any. I think it's mostly just technical at this point, right? Again, no support all the way down to 98 cents on the weekly time frame, and in about 6 months coming from 45 cents. So you need to expect a pullback, and today, obviously was a letdown as well. Also CGC's news of their renewed ATM, so more dilution, and 200 million offering. That didn't help. SPY weekly consolidation didn't help. And then the nothing burger today with the announcement in the Oval Office. But on average, most names, if you take a look at the list today, CXXI, CGC, and VFF led the decline. So most names were down on average around 9-10% today. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. We could get an announcement really at any point. There's a lot of effort now to fully deschedule and legalize it. And then there's talks of rescheduling, and we know a decision on that. A determination is likely coming. They said within a few weeks. It's been a few weeks, so it could come really any time, right? Few doesn't necessarily mean 3. It can mean many, but it could come at any time. So I think the fact that the S&P 500, VFF, a lot of the names are getting weekly consolidation out of the way, I think that this will be, a lot of people are going to be looking to load up on this weekly consolidation ahead of this news catalyst. So I think it's a lot sooner than later that we're going to see a recovery here. Plus, we're starting to see rate cuts coming in the US. It's going to open up expansion, market breadth, and just overall risk appetite in the market. And I think MJ is going to do well. And yeah, we'll see what happens here with regards to a determination of rescheduling. But it's looking good. Like I said, it's healthy at the moment. It's to be expected. It was a healthy correction. It was overdue. And this is why we learned the charts and we studied the charts and we understand that nothing goes in a straight line forever. And when you have no support nearby and you have a face-ripping rally, right, over 650%, you need to expect at least a 20 to 30% pullback. All right, going to end it there. It's Rod with Powell Group. Thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth, and we'll see you on the next video.